My cheating wife blew up our 35-year marriage, and now I'm getting divorced and moving out of the country, leaving her behind to deal with the wreckage. Just a heads up, this story's gonna be a long one. I'm putting this all down partly because people keep asking for an update and partly for myself. I'm still trying to process what happened even 2 years later. I'm a guy in my mid-40s. My ex-wife's a couple of years younger than me. We have 3 kids, 2 of them are technically adults now, and we've only got about 3 more years of co-parenting left with our youngest. We got together back in the late 90s, got married young, early 20s, and from my side at least, I truly believed we were happily married. That is, until around 2017. That's when I started to feel her slipping away. Our middle kid was going through a really dark time back then, serious depression, even some self-destructive thoughts, and I figured that was what was weighing on her. At the time, I didn't mind putting our relationship on the back burner. I thought we were strong enough as a couple to survive a rough patch, especially for the sake of our child's mental health. I truly believed our bond could handle a few years of reduced intimacy and distance if it meant keeping our family together. Now, here's where the timeline of the affair starts. Back in 2006, Facebook was really taking off, and everyone, myself included, was adding anyone we'd ever crossed paths with. I think I had close to 2,000 Facebook friends at one point. That summer, my wife sent a friend request to her ex-boyfriend. They dated when she was 17 and he was nearly 27, a year or so before she and I met. From what she told me back then, he ghosted her and probably cheated too, and that's how it ended between them. But in 2006, they started chatting again, and before long, they were meeting up in secret about 2 or 3 times a week just to hook up. That went on for about 5 or 6 months, from the end of 2007 through March 2008. They used her mom's house as their meetup spot. He'd swing by during the day and they'd use the spare bedroom. Meanwhile, my wife was working on her bachelor's degree and I was covering all the bills so she could focus on school and taking care of our family. We had 3 little ones back then. Just to get this out of the way, I did have DNA tests done later, and all 3 kids are mine. No doubts there. I remember her being emotionally distant during that period, but 2006 was also the year of the big financial crash, and I lost my job. I assumed her coldness came from the stress of me being unemployed and her being disappointed in me. But I've always been good with money, and thanks to our savings, we were okay. I found another job not long after, so in hindsight, that rough patch barely lasted, but at the time it felt overwhelming. I figured that was why she seemed checked out. Turns out it wasn't about finances at all. That affair eventually fizzled out. He had a family of his own, was married with kids, and wanted her to leave me for him. He kept pushing her, but she didn't want to go that far. Still, they kept in contact off and on from 2015 to 2018 and even met up again in the summer of 2013. This time they had sex in his car with 2 children's car seats in the back. Real classy. After that, no contact, at least as far as I know, until 2017. That spring, he reached out to her again. Told her he was getting a divorce and wanted to know if she was still available. Total lie. I later spoke to his wife, well, now ex-wife, and found out they weren't divorced at the time. My guess? He was looking to monkey branch over to my wife and didn't want to jump until he had a new branch ready to catch him. And of course, my wife didn't hesitate. She dove right back in. From 2017 to 2020, they met up a handful of times each year, somewhere between 2 and 5 visits annually. He lived about 2 hours away, and back in the 2010 to 2011 era, he was a truck driver, which meant he regularly passed through our town. That's how they managed to see each other so often back then. This time around, my wife got clever. She'd say she was going on weekend getaways with her friends, just little trips, and I believed her. I trusted her. I mean, I took a guy's trip once or twice a year too, so I didn't think anything of it when she did the same. Whenever she was away, I'd turn those weekends into fun time with the kids, movies, eating out, staying up late, the works. Then came 2020. She kicked the year off with a trip out of town in January. Then again in mid-March. Then once more in late March. And on April 1st, yeah, April Fool's Day, if you can believe it, she came home and told me she wanted a divorce. Said she loved me but wasn't in love with me anymore. Rattled off every flaw I had like she'd been keeping a list. Said she hadn't been happy for years. You know, that script cheaters always seem to use. I don't know where they all get it from, but it's the same recycled garbage you see in post after post online. At the time, I was crushed. Absolutely blindsided. And I fell right into the trap. I started working on myself, thinking I was the one who broke our marriage. I got into therapy just 10 days later. That's record speed for an appointment, but I called every therapist I could find until someone had an opening. I took full ownership of the problems in our marriage and tried everything I could to fix things. She told me she needed space and started going away every other weekend in April, May, and June. I believed her excuses. I thought she needed time to figure things out. What I didn't realize was that her affair partner only had custody of his kids every other weekend, and those were the weekends she'd go visit him. I kept asking her what she wanted, offering to sign the divorce papers she'd printed back in April. She carried them in her purse, always half sticking out, so I couldn't miss them when I grabbed her bag on the way out the door. I told her calmly that if she didn't want to be with me, I wasn't going to force it, but she kept stringing me along, breadcrumbing me just enough to keep me hopeful. And like a fool, I played along. I bent over backward. I was a doormat. Then July came. Around mid-June 2020, she suddenly says she wants to give our marriage another shot. She kept seeing him behind my back. While I was away running an ultramarathon in mid-July, hoping she'd show up at the finish line and surprise me, something to motivate me through the grueling miles, she was busy staying the night at his place. I came home the next day, completely worn out, and she wasn't even there. My kids had taken care of me, went shopping, made dinner, got ice packs from the freezer. The whole bit. She didn't get home until late that night and didn't say a word about where she'd been. Then, in early August, she pulled the same stunt again. I took the 2 younger kids out of town to visit my sister on a Friday. She said she wanted a night in with our oldest. Turned out she lied to both of us, had her affair partner pick her up, spent the night at his place, then drove back the next day to meet up with our oldest and ride out together like nothing happened. We have 2 cars, so the logistics were easy for her. In mid-August, the affair partner went on a trip of his own for the weekend, so she stayed home for once. Then, near the end of August, a major health issue landed her in the hospital for 2 nights. Naturally, I stepped up and handled everything, brought her the essentials she asked for, and even added a few extras I thought she might need. And instead of thanking me, she got upset. Why? Because when I reached into her purse to get something she specifically asked for, I accidentally saw those same damn divorce papers still shoved in there. I hadn't seen those things since early July, and I asked her why she was still carrying them around. She snapped at me instead of giving a straight answer. And then, in true fashion, she went right back to seeing him at the end of August. She tricked her mom into tagging along on a trip to visit her aunt, who just so happens to live in the same city as the AP. My ex snuck out of the hotel both nights to go sleep with him. So she was basically hiding from me that she'd been going to see him all the way since early July. Then came early September. She went to see him again, just days after what should have been our wedding anniversary. By this point, my suspicions were burning hot, and when she got home on November 15th, I finally confronted her. That's when she admitted to part of the truth, what folks on Reddit call trickle-truth. Just enough to keep me from walking out. I asked her directly, who do you want to be with? Him or me? And she said she wanted to stay with me. But almost immediately, she kept sending him little Snapchat messages. Told me she needed time to end things the right way, that she wanted to do it in person. She claimed it would give her closure. So she arranged to meet him halfway in a town about an hour away and said it was just a breakup face-to-face. I still thought the affair was only happening that year, in 2020, so I stupidly believed her and agreed, thinking she'd actually go through with it. That meeting happened on November 30th. But instead of ending things, they went on a mini road trip like a date. They made out and she actually suggested they get a hotel to sleep together. He declined, too cheap for a hotel, apparently, and wanted to go back to his place. The only reason they didn't was because we had location tracking on at the time. So instead, she gave him oral while they drove around town. Stay classy, right? I still don't fully buy that they didn't have sex that day, but at this point, the details barely matter anymore. She finally sent him a breakup message on October 19th. I remember the date so vividly because every single one of those days felt like a personal hell. For 5 weeks and 2 days, it was like something inside me died over and over again. I joined Reddit in December 2020. My first post came before I had any real info from the AP's ex-wife. The second one came after I got in touch with her and started piecing together more of the puzzle. The rest of that year, I was desperately clinging to the hope of reconciliation. I was an emotional wreck. We saw 3 marriage counselors. One of them we saw back in summer 2020, but it was a total waste of time and money. My wife hadn't even admitted to cheating yet, so naturally everyone, including me, assumed the marriage was failing because of me. The other 2 counselors didn't help much either. They took the common let's share the blame approach, which, while popular, completely ignores the reality in cases like this. I don't trust marriage counselors much anymore. I walked into those sessions completely shattered, and instead of support, I got told all the ways I supposedly contributed to our broken marriage. Thing is, I've always communicated well. I'm not secretive. If I need something, I say it. If I'm upset, I speak up. Sure, I wasn't the perfect husband, nobody is. I worked long hours, spent time with friends and family, and only did about a third of the housework. That wasn't fair to her, and I own that. Starting around 2016, I began losing my temper maybe once or twice a year. By 2019, that number climbed to 5 or 6 times. I felt completely ignored, like I didn't matter anymore. I'd raise my voice, not to be cruel, but because every time I brought up my concerns, she brushed me off, said everything was fine. But I knew it wasn't. That's not an excuse. I know raising my voice was wrong, but being gaslit constantly, it wears you down. You start to doubt your own reality. And sometimes yelling feels like the only way to get heard. Through therapy, I've learned that when I'm pushed, I go into fight mode. It gives me a sense of control, like I'm doing something, anything, rather than drowning in helplessness. It's not healthy, but it's how I coped. But the thing that still gets me, she never once tried to talk to me, never sat me down and said, "Hey, I'm unhappy," or "We need to fix this." Nothing. So when those counselors told me I needed to take equal responsibility, no thanks. I was already in emotional freefall. My wife detonated our marriage all by herself. She didn't need my help with that. Anyway, I know this is getting long. Writing it all out is hitting me hard, so I'm gonna pause here. I'll post the rest soon. Maybe later today or in the next day or two. This feels like a good stopping point since it covers all the infidelity stuff. The next part will be about what happened after all this blew up, and how I'm doing now. Update 1, this might be my last Reddit post. I don't hang around the infidelity subs much anymore. It all feels like emotional self-harm now. I need to move forward. D-Day for me was November 18th, 2020. In October and early November that year, I finally told my parents and siblings what happened. My brother seemed supportive at first. He and his wife actually got together after she cheated on her then-husband, around 2011 or 2012. I wasn't totally sure it had been an affair. There were whispers, but nobody ever talked about it outright. Still, I got permission from my brother to talk to my sister-in-law about it. I wanted to understand the mindset, what goes on in someone's head when they betray their partner. I never spoke to her without getting the okay from my brother first. Funny thing is, my brother acted like he'd forgotten it was even an affair. But my sister-in-law confirmed it happened and gave me a bit of insight into what my ex might have been thinking, or feeling, I guess. Then came Christmas 2020. We spent it together as a family, but man, it was hard for me. My birthday's also in December, and I'll admit, I broke down when I got gifts from the kids, both for my birthday and on Christmas. I was in such a dark place emotionally. It was hard to believe anyone still cared about me. New Year's Eve came, and I didn't want to celebrate. At midnight, we stood on the balcony watching fireworks. A year earlier, we'd done the same thing, side by side. And I later found out my wife had used that exact moment to send a Snapchat to her affair partner. Talk about getting gutted. 2021 rolled in. Started slow. I'm a professor, so once I finished grading papers and exams, I usually have about 10 to 14 days at the end of each year to decompress. The semester doesn't really pick up steam until mid-January. And that's where we were, mid-January 2021, having dinner at my parents' house. My brother, his wife, their kids, and my folks were all there. So this part takes place about 4 months after D-Day, and honestly, I was deep in the trenches of undiagnosed PTSD at the time. Not trying to use that as an excuse, just giving some context for where my head was. I wasn't in a good place, emotionally or mentally. We were all gathered at my parents' place for dinner. My mom started telling this story, something completely incoherent, didn't track at all, and it just set me off. I was already raw from constantly arguing with my ex over her gaslighting and nonsense, and for some reason, my mom's rambling triggered me. I didn't raise my voice, but I was clearly irritated, and it showed. Next thing I know, my younger brother jumps up and starts yelling at me loud and angry. So I stood up too. I grabbed my coat and headed toward the front door, ready to just walk away from the situation. But then something inside me snapped. I felt the urge to settle things right then and there. So I turned around, came back in, and shouted at my brother, something like, "What the hell, man?" He stood up again and physically pushed me right out the front door. I didn't push back. Didn't want to escalate anything. We're both big guys, and if it had come to blows, someone would have definitely gotten hurt. I had zero interest in that. Just to be clear, I started that argument. I fully own it and regret it. I walked home, took about 50 minutes, and honestly, it helped clear my head. Later that night, I called my mom and apologized. A little while after, my brother texted me saying he was sorry too and wanted to talk. I replied, "Apology accepted. I get that people lose their tempers. But call me, let's talk it out." That was the last time I heard from him until October 2021. For 2 whole months, silence. No messages. No visits. Just a couple of bland, surface-level phone calls from my mom. That was it. Then mid-March rolls around, it's my mom's birthday. She and my dad went on a little weekend trip to celebrate, but during a hike, my dad took a nasty fall. He broke a few ribs and even cracked his C5 vertebra. Had to be hospitalized overnight. Around 11:45 that night, my mom called to tell me what happened. I immediately offered to drive out about an hour's drive because I didn't want her driving home in the dark, shaken up. My folks are in their late 70s, not old and senile, but definitely not spring chickens either. I didn't want her risking an accident. On the drive home, she asked how I was doing. And I told her the truth, I wasn't okay. I was deeply depressed, had been battling some really dark thoughts. Just that week, I had gone to get tested for STDs because my ex had finally admitted she'd been having unprotected sex with the AP, including anal. I was completely humiliated. Going to an STD clinic at my age, thinking all along I'd been in a safe, monogamous relationship? I hadn't slept with anyone besides my wife since the late 90s. And what did my mom say? That's just what people do when they're having an affair. Gut punch. That's always been her thing, excusing people's worst behavior, downplaying pain, and guilt-tripping anyone who speaks up. If you bring up your hurt, she'll tell you someone else has it worse just to shut you down. After that comment, I changed the subject. Then, at the end of March, my brother sent my wife an email. In it, he basically painted me as some abusive monster. Said he was worried about her and the kids, told her she should leave me, and assured her that he'd be there to support them if she did. She didn't show me the email right away, waited a week or 10 days. When she finally did, I told her she needed to reply and shut that nonsense down. She didn't respond until late April. Then mid-May, he sent another email, doubling down. She replied 2 weeks later, again pushing back. By mid-June, he fired off a third email, tripling down this time, calling me controlling, dismissing my mental health as attention-seeking, saying I wasn't really suicidal or depressed. She responded more firmly that time and told him flat out that if anyone was being abused, it was me. She showed me all 3 emails. I didn't respond to him, I just read them and told her she had to reply with the truth. I know how that looks, but honestly, this was just straight-up garbage. Let me give a little context. I'm 7 years older than my brother. When we were kids, I wasn't always kind. I did dumb older brother stuff, held him down and acted like I was gonna spit on him. Gave him the occasional backhand to the groin, wedgies, all that classic 80s and 90s crap. It wasn't okay, and I owe him an apology for all of it. But I was 13 to 16 years old, and he was like 7 to 9. I moved out at 30, and as a teenager, I didn't want to hang out with my much younger sibling. Not trying to downplay how he felt, but I'd call it pretty standard big brother behavior back then. Still, it doesn't make it right. In late April, I had another phone call with my mom. It turned into a full-blown argument. She started going off, saying I was always rude and again made excuses for my ex. At one point, she said, if your father ever talked about me the way you talk about your wife, I'd divorce him on the spot. I wasn't bad-mouthing my ex, I was just telling my mom what she'd done to me. The very next sentence out of her mouth was, I don't understand why you're still married to that woman. Like, which is it? You want me to stop talking about it, or you want me to leave her? Then she told me I wasn't depressed or dealing with PTSD because I hadn't been officially diagnosed by a clinical psychologist. At that point, I'd had enough. I hung up the phone and wrote her a long email that night. I told her I couldn't keep having conversations like that, and if she couldn't be supportive, I'd need to go no contact for my own mental health. I laid out 3 rules for her and anyone else in the family who knew about the affair. Support both me and my ex, whether we end up staying married or getting divorced. Stop making excuses for my ex. She didn't make a mistake. She made a conscious choice to betray me. understand that I'm carrying a lot of emotional trauma, battling depression and dark thoughts, and respect that. During all of this, my ex and I were still trying to reconcile. We even went on a 5-day trip to a well-known city in southern Europe in mid-May. On night 2, we had a few drinks, maybe 5 cocktails each, and she let something slip. She admitted she'd actually seen the AP twice in 2017, not once like she'd told me before. And just like that, everything unraveled again. I immediately booked a separate hotel room for myself and told her I wanted a divorce. I'd been getting fed a steady diet of trickle-truth for 10 months, and every new confession knocked me right back to square one. We talked the next day and agreed to finish the trip together. She promised to finally give me a full, honest timeline. And a couple days after we got home, she actually followed through. Turned out it wasn't just twice in 2017, it was 5 times. And here's the real kick in the gut. She had marked the days in her daily planner with little hearts. Like some teenage girl with a crush. I damn near threw up when I saw that. By now, I'm sure the affair itself is over. I truly believe that. It's been done since October 2020. I hate that I feel the need to check her phone regularly, but I do. And I'm more tech-savvy than she is, so I'd know if something was going on. We both had full access to each other's phones. She's always known my PIN code, and we kept location sharing on by default. But honestly, I hated it. I felt less like her husband and more like her parole officer. I could feel myself slipping further into emotional numbness every day. It was like I was a tree that had lost all its leaves in autumn and nobody realized I was dead inside until spring came around and nothing grew back. I was still completely shell-shocked. Constantly on edge, hyper-vigilant, trying to piece together what the hell had even happened to my life. June came and she was still dragging her feet. Doing the bare minimum. Only the things I begged her to do. That damn fold-out couch was still sitting at her mother's place, the same one they used in the spare bedroom when they slept together. Our kids had actually slept on that couch during visits. I asked her over and over to get rid of it, and every time she had some excuse. Eventually, she admitted she'd just forgotten. Repeatedly. I've come to believe she's a world-class compartmentalizer. It's like she can store her guilt in little mental drawers, label them neatly, and pretend they don't exist. She was half-hearted about therapy too. She'd go to individual counseling maybe once every 3 or 5 weeks. Then she casually mentioned her therapist was taking 2 months off for summer break. I asked her point blank, do you really think that's enough to work through this mess? To actually unpack everything going on in your head? I pushed her to go more often. If not weekly, then at least twice a month. Meanwhile, I had started EMDR therapy to process the trauma. It was a game changer for me after trying a few different therapists. I'd been on antidepressants since June 2021 and still am to this day. But she never wanted to talk about the affair. She just wanted to pretend it was in the past. Sweep it under the rug. Act like I should just get over it and move on. But that's not how it works. You don't just flip a switch and erase betrayal. I kept telling her if we were going to have any shot at rebuilding this marriage, I needed to see real change. Real accountability. Real effort. And every time I tried to have that conversation, she got defensive. Blamed someone else. Delayed doing the things I asked her to do. Simple things like replacing that couch. Showing up consistently to therapy. Reading anything, books, articles that could help her understand the damage she'd done. Taking initiative. Planning time together. Going out with other couples or friends. Anything that resembled rebuilding. But she left all the emotional heavy lifting to me. Eventually, I hit my breaking point. Around the end of June, beginning of June 2021, I asked her to move out. It wasn't fair for me to leave the house, we have kids and she had a place to go. Her mom had a spare room. I still made sure she had time with the kids. I'd go stay somewhere else for a few days each month so she could be at home with them. She came by regularly too, picked up her things, had dinner with the kids while I'd head out and have dinner with friends. Not long after she moved out, she got a phone call from my mother. The same mother I hadn't heard a word from since April. My mom never responded to the email I sent back then, you know, the one where I laid out the boundaries I needed to feel safe. She called my ex while she was at work. When my ex didn't answer, my mom picked up the phone and called my ex's mother. Let that sink in. My mom and my ex-mother-in-law have no real relationship. They see each other maybe once a year at a family dinner. But my mother took it upon herself to call and tell her that she loves and supports my ex and that she'd be there for her if she ever needed anything. I found out later and was stunned. Then in June 2021, I get a call from my dad. At first, he sounded supportive, like he understood how hard this had been for me. But when I brought up how deeply betrayed I felt by my brother, he cut me off and said, "You do realize you're talking about my son, right?" My heart sank. I wrapped up the call soon after that. That one line said it all. Looking back, I've come to believe my ex has traits consistent with borderline personality disorder, or at least something in that direction. My mother? She checks nearly every box for covert narcissism. And my brother? Classic golden child. He's always been a mess. I loved him anyway. Stood by him through everything. But he's an alcoholic. Was addicted to pills as a teenager. Couldn't keep a job. My mom even had to drag him out of a couple of drug dens back in the early 2000s. I didn't even know about any of that. I'd already moved out by then and no one told me. If they had, I would have gone with her. Would have helped. He's an aura, can't hold down steady work. My parents actually own half of the house he lives in with his wife. They bought 70% of it for them so they'd have enough space for their kids, 2 from the affair she left her first husband for and 2 they had together. Back when they were thinking about helping him buy that house, my dad actually called me and my sister to get our blessing. Took me about 9 seconds to say yes. Of course I supported them doing that. I thought it was the right thing. They were living in a cramped little 3-bedroom apartment that, as it turns out, was owned by my sister-in-law's mother. I didn't even know that at the time. So yeah, my brother's always had things handed to him. Always had someone bailing him out. And he always has a story and excuse. Me? I've always handled my business. I'm educated. I've been responsible. I've kept my life together. I've never needed a bailout. My best guess? My brother has been jealous of me for years, but he hid it well. And when I hit rock bottom, he saw his chance to finally feel superior. And maybe because he was the affair partner in his own relationship, he felt some kind of loyalty to my ex's affair partner. Like, if she cheated, then I must have deserved it somehow. Anyway, he called me in November. Only reason was because he happened to drive past me while I was out walking the dog. He waved and smiled like nothing had happened. So I flipped him off. He called about an hour later, furious. Started yelling at me over the phone. I just let him talk. I asked him one question, if he thought he owed me an apology for stabbing me in the back. He laughed. So I hung up. That was the only time we've spoken since February 2021. I haven't seen my mother since her birthday in May 2021. Haven't seen my dad since April. Haven't seen my brother since January. In mid-September 2021, I sent my parents a long email. I laid out everything, why I was hurt, how they betrayed me, and what I needed moving forward. I told them that unless they gave a sincere apology, I didn't want any contact until at least summer 2022. They didn't respond. But then they started showing up at my gym. The one I'd invited them to for years. I'm fit and I always wanted them to be healthier and spend time with me. They always declined. Suddenly, now that I was pulling away, they were showing up. So I just changed gyms. I sent them another email in May 2022, said the same things. This time, they replied with 2 short sentences, "We love you." That was it. No acknowledgement. No real effort. Just hollow words. 3 weeks ago, I made a Facebook post talking openly about my depression and the intrusive thoughts I've been dealing with. It wasn't a cry for help, but it came after a local man, around my age, took his own life. He'd lost his job in a very public and humiliating way. That hit me hard. Closer to home than I'd like to admit. The post I made wasn't dramatic, it was just an honest reflection. I talked about the dark thoughts I've had and encouraged anyone else feeling the same way to speak up. I said I'd be there for them. Because I get it. I really do. That same evening, I got a call from my dad. First time I'd heard his voice in 9 months. He said he was very worried about me and wanted to drive me to a mental health facility and have me admitted. I told him I didn't believe him. Not because I didn't want help, but because I told him back in the fall of 2019 and again throughout 2021 that I was battling depression and suicidal thoughts. And both times, he brushed me off like it was no big deal. So no, I didn't buy the sudden concern now. And the fact that he hadn't reached out in 8 months? That told me everything I needed to know. He got offended, real offended, said I was calling him a liar. I calmly told him I don't judge people by what they say anymore. I look at what they actually do. And everything he and my mother had done screamed judgment, not love. I told him flat out I would never treat my kids the way they treated me. I asked what he thought about the emails I'd sent him, the ones where I poured out everything I was feeling. He said they were nonsense. That one word hit like a slap. I told him how much that hurt and I ended the call soon after. Haven't heard from him since. And just in case anyone reading this still wonders if I'm the abusive one, when my wife asked for a divorce back on April 1st, 2020, I didn't yell. I didn't rage. I just cried and told her that if she wanted out, I wasn't going to stop her. Then, on D-Day, November 18th, I told her, through tears, that if she was going to keep seeing the affair partner, at least let me change her tires to winter ones before she drove to see him. It was unusually cold that week, and I didn't want her sliding off the road. That's not control. That's not abuse. That's just a man shattered by betrayal, trying to do right by someone who clearly didn't care anymore. And come on, how controlling could I possibly have been if she managed to carry on a 15-year, on-and-off affair under my nose? So that brings us to where I am now. We're selling the house. I've resigned from my tenured position at the university and accepted a new job in Southern Europe. I'm leaving Sweden for good, at least for a long while. My middle child wants to come with me. My oldest just moved in with some friends, and the youngest has the option too if they want to. Co-parenting might get tricky, but I've told all three the same thing. I'll always be just one plane right away. I'll always have a spare bedroom, and if any of them want to visit or move in, I'll make space, no questions asked. I've already planned to rent a 3-bedroom apartment since my middle kid is pretty set on coming. Plus, I'm expecting a lot of visitors. I'm actually really excited about it. I spent part of my childhood abroad, and right now I feel like I'm done with Sweden. Maybe permanently. It's time for a fresh start. I'm currently training for the Stockholm Marathon, just 1 month to go. Last year I finished with a disappointing 6:37. This time I'm shooting for sub 6 hours. My personal best is 4:36, but I'm nowhere near that shape anymore. I'd be thrilled with 4:55 and 55 seconds. Oh, and a few people have asked about my ex and where we stand now. She's finally started working on herself now that she's moved out. I guess that's what it took to shake her awake. But it was too little too late. I'm numb toward her now. I wish her well because she's the mother of my children, but that's where it ends. She begged for another shot. Tried texting, reaching out, asking for reconciliation for months after she left. But I shut it down every time unless it was about the kids. I think she finally got the message because she hasn't brought it up again since late last year. These days I travel a lot, long weekends, week-long solo trips. While I'm gone, she stays at the house with the kids. It's civil. We're not fighting. But I don't ask about her life, and she knows not to talk to me about it. The kids and our mutual friends all respect that boundary. As for the affair partner and his ex-wife, I haven't heard a word about them since September 2020. Don't care to. Never got an apology from him, not that I'd expect one. I did call him once, short, 10-minute call, just to let him know that if he ever tried to insert himself into my life again, he'd regret it. I'm taller, younger, stronger, in better shape, and used to train in martial arts. He knows he wouldn't stand a chance in a straight fight. I could tell he was scared out of his mind during that call. That was enough for me. I got it off my chest and moved on. I tried the dating apps for a bit, but I'm not ready. Too much baggage. Still working through a lot. I'm still struggling with depression and those dark thoughts, but it's better than it was. Slowly improving. I've always had a weird popularity with Southern European women, maybe it's the Viking look. I'm tall, got a beard, in decent shape, tattoos. Honestly, I could probably make a side hustle dressing up as Lars and posing for pictures in Times Square. But for now, I'm just focusing on healing. If something happens naturally down the road, great. But I'm not chasing anything. Update 2, about the kids, they know the general idea, not the details. I never forced the story down their throats, and I never tried to make them hate their mom. I told them that if they ever want to know more, I'll answer any questions honestly. They've all been shocked. They've seen me break down. They've seen the weight of it. As for my ex, she asked for one last chance. But by then she'd already used up all her chances. I had nothing left to give. I've used the dead tree metaphor with a few people, it fits. Our marriage looked fine from the outside, but inside it was long gone. People don't realize a tree is dead until spring comes and it doesn't bloom. That's how it felt with her. By the time she wanted to fix things, I felt nothing. Far as I know, she's still single. I don't think she'll ever reach out to the affair partner again. If she does, that's her mess to deal with. And let me be honest, that guy? Absolute human garbage. He's 3 years older than me, can't keep a job, drinks too much, and is a total loser. If she ever tries to build a real life with him, I'd almost find it funny. Karma at work. I haven't heard anything about him or his ex since 2020, and I really couldn't care less. They divorced back in 2016, and from how she talked about him, I doubt they'll ever be a thing again. As for my own family, there's not much left to say. I do have a sister, and she stayed out of it. We still talk, but it's becoming less and less. I think she feels like she has to pick a side, and that's hard for her. Being no contact with both my parents has made family gatherings complicated. I haven't gone to anything in over a year, no graduations, no weddings, no birthdays because everyone in the extended family is tied to either my mom or dad. So yeah, it's lonely sometimes, but peaceful. And peace is worth something. This is something I'll have to carry for the rest of my life, and I'm really trying to make some kind of peace with that. I don't lose sleep over the bridges I've burned. At this point, I honestly don't care if that bridge ever gets rebuilt. That said, deep down, yeah, I still secretly hope my parents might offer a real apology one day. But I'm not holding my breath. As for my brother, I couldn't care less. He's shown me exactly who he is, and I've got no interest in rebuilding anything with him. I used to go to bat for him every time someone badmouthed him. Always had his back, always defended him. This was his one chance, just one, to return the favor. And he chose to kick me while I was already on the ground. So yeah, I'm done. I don't speak to my ex anymore unless it's about the kids. That's the boundary, and she's finally starting to respect it. At first, she kept trying to bring up other stuff, mostly trying to reopen the door, hinting at reconciliation, but I shut that down every time. She's gotten the message now. Looking back, I honestly think she was completely fine living in denial. She liked the setup, having the stable husband at home while sneaking away to play pretend on weekends. She got to have her cake and eat it too and thought the fantasy could go on forever. But she never considered what would happen if she got caught because in her mind, she never would. The affair wasn't really about the affair partner. It was about escaping reality. It let her act like some carefree 18-year-old again just for a few hours at a time. But that's not my circus anymore. Not my monkeys, not my mess.